Mr. Chair, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. This is the Committee on Rules, Wednesday, June the 15th of 2022. Due to the current public health emergency, city council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are currently using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at the public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate they are present when their names are called. So also please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak.
Vice Chair Mark Squilla.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and colleagues present.
Councilmember David O.
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. I'm present.
Councilmember Cindy Bass.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. I am present.
Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I am present.
Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez.
Good afternoon. I am present, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Curtis Jones. And Councilmember Brian O'Neill.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Mr. Chair, a quorum is present.
Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Rules regarding bills number 200118, 220007, 220323, 220338, 220357, 220358, 220363, 220414, 220417, 220445, 220446, 220449, 220450, 220451, 220452, 220456, and 220458. Will the clerk please read the titles of the bills?
Bill number 220445 to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cotman Avenue, Oxford Avenue, Tyson Avenue, Rising Sun Avenue, Glenview Street, Bingham Street, Kerper Street, Rising Sun Avenue, Unruh Avenue, Martins Mill Road, City Boundary, and Hasbrook Avenue. Bill number 220446, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising certain provisions of Section 14-520 entitled NDO 9th District Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 200118, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising certain provisions of Chapter 14-700 entitled Development Standards by revising bulk and massing controls within CMX-4 and CMX-5 zoning districts, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220456 to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Market Street Extended, the Delaware River, Dock Street Extended, and 2nd Street in order to facilitate development of public open space extending above Christopher Columbus Boulevard and the Delaware Expressway. Bill number 220458, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500, entitled Overlay Zoning Districts, by amending the provisions of Section 14-527, entitled SMH, South Philadelphia Municipal Hub Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220323, amending Section 14-513 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled TOD, Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District, to designate additional transit-oriented development transit stations, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220357, to approve amendments to the Temple University Master Plan in the area bounded by Montgomery Avenue, 13th Street, Pollitt Walk, and 12th Street, related to the new College of Health building at 1801-59 North 13th Street. Bill number 220007, amending Chapter 14-500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Overlay Zoning Districts by amending a section as proposed to be added by Bill number 210778 entitled the AHP, Affordable Housing Preservation Overlay District, to add certain areas within the area bounded by Haverford Avenue, 38th Street, Walnut Street, and 46th Street to the district and making other changes all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220450, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Woodland Avenue, 49th Street, Grays Avenue, and 54th Street. Bill number 220451, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Arch Street, 50th Street, Pine Street, and 54th Street. Bill number 220452, amending Section 14-513 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled TOD, Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District, to designate additional transit-oriented development transit stations, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220363, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by South Street, the Schuylkill River, 34th Street, University Avenue, Civic Center Boulevard, and Health Sciences Drive. And to approve amendments to the University of Pennsylvania Master Plan in the area bounded by South Street, the Schuylkill River, 34th Street, University Avenue, Civic Center Boulevard, and Health Sciences Drive, related to the proposed Ott Center building at 2910 South Street and other previously approved minor amendments. Bill number 220414, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising and clarifying certain landscaping requirements and provisions and making related technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220358, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by amending certain provisions of Section 14-503 NCA Neighborhood Commercial Area Overlay District relating to the Ridge Avenue NCA District and by making related changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220417, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising Section 14-303, subsection 11A, entitled Registered Community Organizations, by establishing a fund to be used by registered community organizations to obtain legal representation for hearings and appeals before the Zoning Board of Adjustments, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220338, amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning by revising certain provisions of Section 14-524, entitled FDO, 4th District Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220449, to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designation of a certain area of land located within an area bounded by 39th Street, Ludlow Street, 40th Street, and Market Street, to amend other rules relating to zoning and approving a master plan for the site bounded by the aforementioned area, and making related changes to various provisions of Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning, and making technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Those are all the bills, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Also, before we begin, I wanted to announce that bill numbers 220338 and 220449 are being held. Please let the record reflect that bills number 220338 and 220449 are being held at the request of the sponsor. I will now recognize Dylan Mahoney from Councilmember Parker's office to read a summary of the amendment to bill number 220445, and I ask that the clerk to display the amendments for the viewers public.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. I'm working on sharing the screen.
It's okay.
Mr. Chair, in order to not delay the hearing further, I think we can move forward without the screen share.
Sure. Will the clerk please call the panel for bill number 220445?
Paula Brumblow Burns.
Hey, Paula.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumblow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission, and I'm going to be here with you all day. So, introductions are over. I am here to testify on bill number 220445, which was introduced into City Council on May 19th, 2022 by Councilmember Parker. Bill number 220445 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cotman Avenue, Oxford Avenue, Tyson Avenue, Rising Sun Avenue, Glenview Street, Bingham Street, Kerper Street, Rising Sun Avenue, Unruh Avenue, Martins Mill Road, the city boundary, and Hasbrook Avenue. The zoning changes are to reflect existing uses and allow for development consistent with character and scale of the neighborhood. The proposed zoning districts are I-1, light industrial, and CMX-2, commercial mixed use. The proposed corrective zoning map changes are in line with the Lower Northeast District Plan. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220445 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended approval. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Paula. Any questions or comments from members of the committee?
Mr. Chair, can I just suggest that Mr. Mahoney be recognized to describe the amendment being offered?
Yep, absolutely. The clerk will now recognize Mr. Dylan Mahoney from Councilwoman Sherelle Parker's office to read a summary of the amendment for bill number 220445.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At today's hearing, Councilwoman Parker will be introducing an amendment to Bill 220445, which amends the zoning designations of property in the Burholm neighborhood in Northeast Philadelphia. The amendment will add zoning maps developed in conjunction with the Planning Commission staff and as an exhibit to the legislation that was introduced in Council. The zoning changes contained in the amendment focus on correcting the zoning designations of property located along the Cotman Avenue commercial corridor. The Planning Commission staff assisted the office in identifying parcels whose zoning designations no longer correspond to the current use of the property, and in line with the 2035 plan, our goals in introducing these changes are 1, to encourage development that fits with the existing neighborhood's character, and 2, to reduce the number of unnecessary variance applications for businesses seeking to locate on the commercial corridor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, what we're going to do is I'm going to call the clerk. I'm going to ask the clerk to please call a panel for bill number 220446. And then I will also, again, after the testimony for 220446, call on Mr. Dylan Mahoney from Councilman Sherelle Parker's office to read an amendment to bill number 220446.
Mr. Chair, the panel is Paula Brumblow Burns and Stephanie Michelle.
Please state your name and start your testimony.
Good afternoon. I am Paula Brumbelow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on Bill number 220446, which was introduced into City Council on May 19th, 2022 by Councilmember Parker. Bill number 220446 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by revising certain provisions of Section 14-520 NDO 9th District Overlay District. This bill identifies 4 commercial corridors within the 9th Council District and requires a special exception for consumer goods, food, beverages, and groceries, sundries, pharmaceuticals, and convenience sales. This proposed overlay amendment is modeled after a similar overlay in the 4th Council District, which the Planning Commission did not recommend for approval. The proposed use restrictions are likely to slow business growth in neighborhood commercial corridors, creating an additional hurdle for new businesses, large and small. The uses targeted in this bill are common and necessary for sustaining neighborhood quality of life. Requiring prospective businesses to retain an attorney and face delay and uncertainty of a special exception hearing will undoubtedly discourage the establishment of new businesses and expansion of existing businesses. It will disproportionately affect business owners with limited access to capital who have trouble affording the additional legal costs and time associated with a zoning appeal. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 220446 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and did not recommend for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Will the clerk please call the next panelist?
Stephanie Michelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Michelle. I'm the Executive Director of the North 5th Street Revitalization Project. I'm here to share the perspective of business owners and the commercial corridor community. And so this is a statement. I actually had this conversation with a business owner shortly before joining the call. And she said to me, "You know, Stephanie, without these businesses, everything would be okay. I've been on 5th Street for over 30 years. This is a big problem. I don't know how or why they open and they don't care for us. This just happened. They don't have licenses to sell and they sell loosies to underage kids. How can people do this? People work to stop this. Please work to stop this, Stephanie. This is a big problem." And so my testimony is to share that we have seen an increase in smoke shops along commercial corridors and these candy shops, and they're having a negative impact on communities across the city. They're impacting neighboring businesses. And I think this bill, in order to have them meet with community members and be intentional about opening up on our commercial corridors, will be helpful and slow down the increase of these nuisance businesses. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Before I acknowledge the author of the bill, I would like for Dylan Mahoney from Councilman Sherrell's Parker's office to read a summary of the amendment for the bill 220446.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilman Parker will be introducing an amendment to Bill 220446. Sorry, my screen went away there. Excuse me. Which will expand the bill's current coverage areas by including additional commercial review areas where the bill's requirements would apply. As written, the legislation would amend the 9th District overlay to require a special exception for certain categories of businesses that apply for permits in commercial review areas created by the legislation. The bill specifically designates the boundaries of these commercial review areas, and the goal in introducing the legislation was to identify corridors with a high concentration of nuisance businesses and require new businesses that are likely to generate a high volume of nuisance complaints to seek a special exception at the zoning board. The amendment that is being introduced today would do 2 things. 1, make technical changes to clarify the boundaries of the commercial review areas already included in legislation as introduced, and 2, add additional commercial review areas where the bill's restrictions would apply. The commercial corridors, which will be added to the bill under the proposed amendment, are Castor Avenue from Roosevelt Boulevard to Cottman Avenue, Rising Sun Avenue from Roosevelt Boulevard to Cottman Avenue, Stenton Avenue from Haynes Street to Allen Lane, Vernon Road from Fayette Avenue to Michener Avenue, and Wadsworth Avenue from Michener Avenue to Cheltenham Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to commend the author of this bill. Those candy/smoke shops are targeted primarily in African American and brown people's community. I have several complaints, particularly in my community. They stay open all hours of the night. Don't even know how that happens. people begin to congregate out there based upon their predatory nature and what they're actually selling to the community. So at this time, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, and then I have to relinquish my chair to Councilman Mark Squilla as I have to go into the district to address some councilmatic issues for a moment, and then I'll be back later today. So the chair now turns it over to Councilman Mark Squilla, who acknowledges Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, author of this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Parker?
Yes, Chairman Johnson and now Chairman Squilla, thank you so very much for the opportunity. And Chairman Johnson, thank you so very much for your comments. I wanted to just note for the record that if adopted, this bill will add another tool in the toolbox for my district's fight to address the issue of nuisance businesses operating on our neighborhood commercial corridors. Chairman Squilla and members of the committee, just last night, I had a meeting. I attended the RCO meeting for the 50th Ward about an event space. Just a standard operating procedure, Mr. Chairman, for what we have to go through. And of course, what issue comes up? The 24-hour smoke shops that had absolutely nothing to do with that event space. Why? Because for too long, nuisance corner stores and smoke shops, they've operated with impunity in Black and brown neighborhoods. And this is what Chairman Johnson was referencing, with no say from the neighbors about the types of businesses that can operate in their communities. Black and brown neighborhoods have historically been targets of exploitive business practices. Nuisance smoke shops and certain types of convenience stores are a stark reminder that this history is still alive today. And when I was listening, Chairman Squilla, to Chairman Johnson's comments, I had a flashback because I'm born 72, but raised in the 80s. We would have these entertainment shops that sold radio speakers and car speakers and stereo equipment, but in their windows, they also had drug paraphernalia. Well, the same type of display. Windows filled with pipes and drug paraphernalia are on display behind the counter. You'd be hard pressed to find a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread in these so-called convenience stores that my office receives several calls about. These nuisance businesses are a burden on their communities, and neighbors are tired of their quality of life concerns falling on deaf ears. As it relates to this issue. In addition to that, in 1 second here, Mr. Chairman, I just had the same Dillon challenge. They're tired of their issues falling on deaf ears, and this requirement that these businesses seek zoning board approval will allow our neighbors to address their concerns before a potential nuisance business opens up in their community. This just gives them some say before the business opens up. Dillon also, he already mentioned that this is similar to what Councilmember Jones did in the 4th District. Thank you, Councilmember Jones. It is vital that neighbors be given a voice in decisions that impact the quality of life in their communities. And Bill number 220446 will ensure that their voices are heard. I would also be remiss without mentioning, and especially since Stephanie spoke before and just gave her overview, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the hard work that our council colleague, Catherine Gilmore Richardson, has done in this area. She is the person, in fact, who has led the citywide effort to take tours through commercial corridors. And Stephanie was with us when we toured the Fifth Street commercial corridor together in late April to observe the business quarter and the negative impacts that smoke shops are having. You heard the testimony from Michelle. In addition to that, from Stephanie, in addition to that, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson and I co-introduced a resolution calling on the Philadelphia Department of Public Health to exercise to the full extent of its authority to address public health issues related to the sale of tobacco products, including hookah, in violation of the tobacco retailer permit provisions in the Philadelphia Code, and to mitigate the disproportionate effect of those sales in certain areas. The resolution was adopted by council last Thursday. I hope the Department of Health will heed our call. We can address the issue of nuisance businesses, but it will take legislation such as this bill, full enforcement of other legislation that is already on the books, and the political will to get it done. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also want all members to note this. In the 9th Councilmanic District in particular, because I can't speak about what happens in other districts, we can log via our various district police offices all of the calls, the shootings that have occurred, and unfortunately, the tragic homicides that have occurred in front of and or near these locations, Mr. Chairman. And so to all of the residents of the 9th Councilmanic District, because we sent out a notice that this hearing will be going on, so we know we have community-based organizations and RCOs throughout the 9th that are listening. We got it. This comes from the ground up. We heard what you said, and this is our attempt to actually do something about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Council Member. Well said, and the concerns are real throughout the city. Thank you. It seems like we have a comment before we go into the panel. So, Councilmember Gilmore-Richardson.
Yes, thank you so much, Councilmember Squilla. Just wanted to thank Councilmember Sherelle L. Parker for her work on this issue and the work she continues to do to address quality of life issues in the community. Look forward to continuing to support this type of legislation, and just wanted to come on to say thank you so much, and thank you to Stephanie, who was out with us on the front lines on the North 5th Street corridor when we did the corridor tour in Councilmember Parker's district. So thank you so much, Councilmember Parker. I look forward to supporting this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, for your comments and input. Mr. Harris, do you want to call the panel to testify on bill number 220446?
Councilmember, the panel did testify on that bill.
Okay.
Councilmember Parker gave her remarks following the panel's testimony.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone else here to testify? Any other questions? Hearing none. Then, Mr. Harris, you want to read the title? Call the panel for the next bill?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Bill number 200118. The witness is Paula Brumblow Burns.
Good afternoon, members of the Rules Committee. Paula Brumblow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I will testify on Bill number 200118, which was introduced into City Council on February 6, 2020 by Councilmember O'Neill for Councilmember Squilla. Bill number 200118 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by revising certain provisions of Chapter 14-700 entitled Development Standards by revising bulk and massing controls within CMX-4 and CMX-5 commercial mixed-use zoning districts. The amended version of Bill number 200118 before you today is a result of collaboration between the Building Industry Association, Center City Residents Association, and the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. This bill will add a maximum building width controls to new construction buildings on Chestnut and Walnut Streets for projects using the Option A sky plane to comply with CMX-4 and CMX-5 bulk and massing controls. These proposed widths will now match those required for projects using Option B, which is the open air, building width, spacing, and height controls. Additionally, a requirement that a 10-foot setback above 55 feet be provided for all lot zones CMX-4 or CMX-5 that front on Sansom Street. In addition, new construction buildings on Sansom Street with controls match those on Chestnut and Walnut Streets. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 200118 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Brumblow, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Is there anyone else to testify on bill number 200118? Hearing none. Mr. Harris, please read the title of the next bill and The panel to testify?
Bill number 220456. The witness is Paula Brumlow Burns.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, members of the Rules Committee. I'm Paula Brumlow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220456, which was introduced into City Council on May 19th, 2022 by Councilmember Squilla. Bill number 220456 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of land located within an area bounded by Market Street, the Delaware River, Dock Street, and 2nd Street. This bill will facilitate the development of public open space that will extend over the Delaware Expressway, I-95, and Christopher Columbus Boulevard. Currently, the right-of-way for I-95 has no zoning designation and will now become SPPOA, Parks and Open Space Active District, which will assist in acquisition and future permitting for the project. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 220456 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Brumlow. And this is an exciting project, obviously, to have another open space park in an area that never existed before. So thank you for all your work and everybody who was involved in this CAP project. It's been a long time coming, so much appreciated. Is there any questions or anybody else to testify on bill number 220456? Seeing none, Mr. Harris, please read the next bill and the panel to testify.
Bill number 220458, also testifying Paula Brumlow Burns.
Good afternoon, members of the Rules Committee. I'm Paula Brumlow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 220458, which was introduced into City Council on May 19th, 2022 by Councilmember Squilla. Bill number 220458 amends Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14-500 entitled Overlay Zoning Districts by amending the provisions of Section 14-527 entitled SMH South Philadelphia Municipal Hub Overlay District, all under certain terms and conditions. The bill proposes changes to the existing overlay for this multi-use site at 11th and Warden Streets. Current uses on site include a police station, fire station, a former fleet management building, a PPA parking lot, and a mixed-use commercial and residential building. This bill increases the allowable square footage of office, retail, and commercial service floor area per dwelling unit from 250 square feet to 425 square feet due to a reduction in residential units from the original proposal. The bill also prohibits visitor accommodation and limited lodging uses within the overlay. There are no changes to the adopted master plan for this area, which includes the development of the new fire station and a new mixed residential and commercial building, as well as the conversion of the former fleet management building to offices. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220458 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Anyone else here to testify on bill number 220458? Hearing none, thank you so much. Mr. Harris, could you please read the next bill and the panel to testify?
Bill number 220323, and the witness is Paula Brumlow Burns.
I'm Paula Brumlow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on bill number 220323, which was introduced into City Council on April 7th, 2022 by Councilmembers Sanchez and Squilla. Bill number 220323 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by designating additional transit-oriented development transit stations, known as TODs, all under certain terms and conditions. This bill designates 5 stations on the Market-Frankfort line as TOD stations. The included stations are the Frankfort Transportation Center, Tioga, Somerset, Huntingdon, and Burke stations. This designation will map the TOD overlay to cover all lots that lie partly or entirely within 500 feet of an exit or entrance of these stations. The TOD overlay includes provisions intended to increase development potential, encourage better pedestrian environments, provide greater incentives for public benefits, and reduce parking requirements. Properties within the 500-foot radius from station exits and entrances that fall within the 7th Council District and other specified areas will have to comply with the requirements of the Mixed Income Neighborhoods MIN overlay. The extension of the MIN to these areas would help to reduce the displacement impacts of higher density development allowed in the TOD by requiring on-site affordable units, thus maintaining opportunities for low-income households that depend on transit to access employment and services. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 220323 at its meeting of April 21st, 2022, and recommended for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Well, that was easy for you to say, so.
That was really hard. I did not have that one.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions or anybody else here to testify on 220323? I see Kevin. Just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Squill. My name is Kevin Malowski, and I'm here to testify on behalf of the Philadelphia chapter of the American Institute of Architects on Bill number 220323. Boy, that is a mouthful. The AIA is Philadelphia's voice of the architectural profession and represents more than 260 member architecture firms, as well as 220 affiliate companies supplying products and services to the construction industry in this region. Today I'm here to testify in support of Bill number 220323, which will add 5 more stations to the transit-oriented development zoning overlay. The AIA supports sustainable development and encourages better design in the public realm. It is our belief that this bill takes a step in the direction of enhancing both of these priorities. The original TOD legislation only included 4 stations. By adding 5 additional stations to the TOD overlay, the city is incentivizing development near our core transit stations, which can handle a greater height and density of housing. In turn, by building in closer proximity to these transit stations, we are encouraging the creation of more walkable and accessible communities. When you live within a few blocks of the Market-Frankford line, you're much less likely to need a car or to use it on a daily basis. Much of the city becomes more accessible via transit as you can connect to major hubs throughout Philadelphia from the L. Furthermore, this reduction in car usage will help to reduce the amount of congestion experienced across the city, while also mitigating additional carbon emissions. A more walkable and easily accessible Philly is a more equitable Philly. However, we also believe that more can be done to encourage walkable communities within our city and sustainable compact urban development around these transit-oriented development. The current radius to qualify for the TOD overlay, as mentioned earlier, is 500 feet, which is roughly a 2 to 3 minute walk. This is approximately the amount of time it takes you to get from one side of City Hall to the other. Our peer cities have amplified the power of TODs by increasing the permissible radius from their stations. Los Angeles, for example, has incremental TOD targets for new housing units, seeking to keep them within 1,500 feet of a transit station. New York has been leveraging new housing development and rezoning to shift its new housing from auto-oriented areas to transit-oriented neighborhoods. Plan NYC is aiming for 95% of new housing to be built within half a mile of transit stations. Portland is taking a different approach by using a 20-minute walking radius as its guide for TODs. We would like to encourage the council to consider increasing the radius from 500 feet to something more comparable with our peers. Philadelphia has an extensive transit infrastructure, and we believe that the city should leverage it to create a more walkable and sustainable urban environment. That said, the AIA would like to thank Council Members Squilla and Quinones-Sanchez for introducing this bill. The AIA also supports Bill number 220452, introduced by Councilmember Gautier, and also being heard today, which would add a TOD station in her district as well. The combination of these 2 bills would help to increase the TODs in Philadelphia from 4 to 10. This is very impactful, and we fully support these efforts to help encourage sustainable growth within our city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kevin, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee or anybody else here to testify on 220323? Seeing none. Mr. Harris, can you please read the next bill and the people to testify?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'll also note for the record that a copy of an economic opportunity plan has been circulated for this bill to the members of the committee. The panel is Paula Brumlow Burns and James Templeton for Bill number 220357.
Paula Brumbelow-Burns. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please proceed. Thanks.
I'm Paula Brumbelow-Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220357, which was introduced into City Council on April 28, 2022 by Councilmember Parker on behalf of Council President Clark. Bill number 220357 amends Temple University's main campus master plan within the area bounded by Montgomery Avenue, 13th Street, Pollitt Walk, and 12th Street. This bill will enable Temple University to renovate and expand the former Paley Library into classrooms, research facilities, meeting rooms, and offices for the School of Public Health. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 220357 at its meeting of May 19, 2022, and recommended approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Next person to testify, just state your name for the record, and then we proceed.
I am James Templeton with Temple University. I'm the university architect. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Committee on Rules. I serve as I just said, Assistant Vice President, University Architect for Temple University. And on behalf of the university, I thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill number 220357. At Temple, we appreciate Council President Clark for support of Bill number 220357, as well as for his leadership in the city and the community where our main campus is located. We also appreciate both Council Majority Leader Parker for sponsoring Bill number 220357 on behalf of Council President and the city's Planning Commission for its unanimous support of the bill on its May 19th, 2022 meeting. The university is in the midst of establishing a new home for its College of Public Health. We believe this project is particularly timely and will especially be impactful given the expanding demands regarding public health. Whether helping to address chronic concerns or planning for the next pandemic, this college is consistently on the front line. When the project is completed, this new state-of-the-art facility is expected to provide modern spaces for learning, research, and much more, providing benefits for communities, the city, and the region. Bill number 220357 seeks to amend the master plan for Temple University related to new college and public health building at 1801 through 59 North 13th Street. And rather than construct an entirely new building, the university intends to repurpose and expand the former Paley Hall Library building at the heart of our North Central Philadelphia campus. This site is across from our iconic bell tower and is deep within the campus footprint, surrounded by other academic buildings. The planned improvements to the current facility consist of the complete renovation and reuse of the library building, including interior renovations, infrastructure upgrades, expansion of the building's footprint, and transformation of the building's facade. The program for the College of Public Health entails research and laboratory space throughout academic departments and classrooms, faculty and executive offices, assembly space, conference rooms, student collaboration and study spaces, a simulation center for clinical training, and a bookstore. Further, the project includes landscaped outdoor terrace space and courtyards. In closing, the College of Public Health is of vital importance to Temple University and the city of Philadelphia. Temple University respectfully requests that the committee recommend passage of Bill number 220357 to allow this important project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, James, much appreciated. Eileen Quigley, are you connected? If you are, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, Councilman Squilla, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Yes, I just want to follow up to Mr. Templeton's testimony and thank James for testifying on behalf of Temple. My name's Eileen Quigley, as you said, and I'm here with my colleague, Matt McClure. We just want to thank you and the committee today for hearing Mr. Templeton's testimony and to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you again.
Thank you. Are there any questions or anyone else here to testify on bill number 220357? Hearing none. Thank you all for your testimony on that bill. I will recognize now Andrew Goodman from Councilmember Gaudier's office to read a summary of the amendments for Bill number 220007. And I ask the clerk to display the amendments if possible for viewing public.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Andrew Goodman from Councilmember Gaudier's office. Should I wait for the screen share or should I begin?
Mr. Chair, I'm still working on resolving the screen sharing issue, so I think Mr. Goodman should go ahead.
All right. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, committee members. Our office offers an amendment to Bill number 220007 solely within Section 6 of the bill. That section relates to demolition restrictions. Our amendment creates a temporary demolition moratorium within the Affordable Housing Preservation Overlay that only applies to parcels size 20,000 square feet or more, or parcels that add up to 20,000 square feet or more. It also adds language allowing demolition within said overlay for structures categorized as unsafe or imminently dangerous by licenses and inspections. The temporary demolition moratorium expires on March 13th, 2023. That concludes our amendment to Bill number 220007. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you for that amendment. I see that we have Ms. Brumbelow available to testify on Bill number 220007. If you're available, just state your name, Paula, and then proceed with your testimony.
I'm Paula Brumbelow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220007, which was introduced into City Council on January 20th, 2022 by Councilmember Gautier. Bill number 220007 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by amending a section of Bill number 210778, also known as the AHP Affordable Housing Preservation Overlay District. This bill will add certain areas to the overlay within the area bounded by Haverford Avenue, 38th Street, Walnut Street, and 46th Streets to the district and making other changes. This bill will now impact 3817 Market Street, the 3900 block face of Market Street, the southern block of 4400 Market Street and 4500 Market Street, and the northern block of 4500 Walnut Street. The overlay is to support the preservation and development of affordable housing in high amenity transit accessible locations. In addition to expanding the geographic scope of the existing overlay, two provisions will be added. Bonuses can only be earned once the mixed income overlay district is met on site. The second is that no demolition permits may be issued within the AHP until a building permit for new development on the lot is approved. The Planning Commission voted for approval on Bill number 210778 at its meeting of October 21st, 2021. The Commission has taken no action on Bill number 220007 and over 75 days have passed. Accordingly, Bill 220007 is deemed approved by the Planning Commission. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Is there anyone else here to testify on 220007? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Will the clerk please close the panel for 220450?
Paula Brumbelow Burns.
I'm Paula Brumbelow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220450, which was introduced into City Council on May 19th, 2022 by Councilmember Gautier. Bill number 220450 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Woodland Avenue, 49th Street, Grace Avenue, and 54th Street. The bill changes an existing CMX-2 commercial mixed use and an existing RM1 residential multifamily district to ICMX, industrial commercial mixed use. The intent of the zoning map amendment is to facilitate the expansion of a long-standing industrial business. The zoning map amendment is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, Phila 2035. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 220450 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions or anyone else here testify on bill number 220450? Hearing none, I will now recognize Andrew Goodman again from Councilmember Gaudier's office to read summary of the amendments for bill number 220451.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon again. Since bill number 220451 was introduced, we are proposing what we consider to be relatively minor mapping changes to 3 total properties within the bill's boundaries. These changes are a result of continued stakeholder outreach with property owners and community groups after the bill was introduced. One map amendment is keeping 2 properties on the 5100 block of Irving Street zone commercial. They were originally proposed to be changed to residential in the original bill. The second map amendment proposes to remap a large format property on the east side of 52nd Street between Spruce and Delancey Streets to CMX 2.5, whereas the original bill proposed CMX 2. That concludes our amendment to bill number 220451. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Mr. Harris, can you please call the panel for to testify on 220451?
Paula Brumlow Burns.
I'm Paula Brumlow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on bill number 220451, which was introduced into City Council on May 19, 2022 by Councilmember Gautier. Bill number 220451 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Arch Street, 50th Street, Pine Street, and 54th Street. Following an extensive neighborhood outreach process over the last year, the bill would remap properties along and near the 52nd Street commercial corridor between Arch Street and Pine Street. This includes an elimination of the CMX-4 core commercial mixed-use zoning district, which is currently predominant in the areas immediately surrounding Market Street, but otherwise rare in Philadelphia outside of Center City and the highest density area of University City. Many properties a few blocks from the commercial corridor would also be remapped to single-family residential zones to match the existing uses. While the bill includes a significant downzoning of many properties, this is partially offset by the addition of the 52nd Street area to the TOD Transit-Oriented Development Overlay and the inclusion of this entire area in the MIN Mixed Income Neighborhoods Overlay, which will direct density to areas well served by transit. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220451 at its meeting of June 9, 2022 and recommended approval. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions from the committee? Hearing none, anyone else here to testify on bill number 220451? Thank you. Mr. Clark, could you please call the panel for bill number 220452?
Paula Brumlow Burns.
Please proceed.
I'm Paula Brumlow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 220452, which was introduced into City Council on May 19, 2022 by Councilmember Gautier. Bill number 220452 amends Section 14-513 of the Philadelphia Zoning Code entitled TOD, Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District, to designate additional transit-oriented development transit stations, all under certain terms and conditions. This bill would add the Market Frankfurt Line's 52nd Street station area to the TOD overlay, thus extending this overlay to cover all lots that lie partly or entirely within 500 feet of an exit or entrance of these stations. The TOD overlay includes provisions intended to increase development potential, encourage better pedestrian environments, provide greater incentives for public benefits, and reduce parking requirements. This bill serves as a companion to Zoning Bill 220451, which we just heard, which amends the zoning for many of the parcels in the station area. Both bills followed an extensive neighborhood outreach process over the last year, intended to right-size the zoning of 52nd Street corridor in a way that fosters opportunities for new development and greater density near the L station, while protecting existing uses and fostering affordability throughout the area. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220452 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. I got thrown off by your picture there, but thank you for your testimony. Is there any
sorry.
questions?
My cover sheet went over the camera.
Yeah, that's okay. Is there any questions from the committee? Is there anybody else here to testify on bill number 220452? Seeing none, Mr. Harris, can you please call the panel for bill number 220363?
Paula Brumlow Burns.
All right, is that picture better this time?
There you go. Yes. State your name again for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
I am Paula Brumbelow Burns. I am here to testify on bill number 220363, which was introduced at the City Council on April 28, 2022 by Councilmember Gautier. Bill number 220363 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning within an area bounded by South Street, the Schuylkill River, 34th Street, University Avenue, Civic Center Boulevard, and Health Sciences Drive, and amends the University of Pennsylvania SPINS master plan. This bill changes the zoning from RM4 residential multifamily and I2 medium industrial to SPINS special purpose institutional. This bill also incorporates this area into the University of Pennsylvania's SPINS master plan. The master plan amendments recognize the university's intent to replace an existing athletic facility known as the Hollenbeck Annex with a new, larger athletic facility, which will be called the Ott Center. The master plan amendments further include corrections to the floor area and open area related to the development of the Vagelos Library. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220363 at its meeting of May 19, 2022, and recommended for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the committee or anyone else here to testify on bill number 220363? Hearing none, I will now recognize Councilmember Gilmore Richardson to read a summary of the amendments for bill number 220414.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Squilla, and thank you, colleagues, for your latitude relative to this bill. But today I'm asking for your support on bill number 220414, which starts implementing the recommendations of the Philly Tree Plan by creating a Philly Tree Fund and updating the on-site and parking landscaping provisions of the zoning code. Combined, these changes will help us address and ensure that there are more trees and plants to reduce heat island impacts, manage stormwater, improve air pollution, sequester carbon, and most importantly, improve the health, well-being, and safety of our residents. This bill will also allow us to create, grow, and care for our tree canopy while still allowing economic development that will create hundreds of jobs for Philadelphians. As I say often, trees are not an amenity, but a necessity within our communities. But despite our best efforts, we are still losing our tree canopy, and we are still struggling to provide enough funds to grow, protect, and care for our trees. This bill will put us on the path to addressing these issues. I want to thank the administration for their hard work and collaboration on this effort. I also want to thank the environmental advocates, community representatives, and industry stakeholders who have worked with us throughout this process. As a background, the tree fund will require the submission of a landscaping and tree preservation plan for lots greater than 5,000 square feet. For any trees that are removed and cannot be replaced on site, the administration can grant a waiver to allow for payment in lieu. These funds will then be used by Parks and Rec to help plant and maintain trees across the city, ideally prioritizing the environmental justice communities identified as most in need of trees through the tree plan process, which engaged tens of thousands of Philadelphians. And I've been around for a long time, and I must say that is one of the best community engagement processes I've ever seen in my time here in city government. I am offering amendments to the bill today that will make technical changes as well as clarify certain provisions of the legislation, including the timeline for the implementation associated with the payment in lieu and waiver process, applicability including the 5th District overlay, the fee cap and heritage trees on industrial property, notification with by right notification going to the district council member in the Office of Sustainability. All of the notification goes through the typical process. Also a grandfather clause, plantings, and buffering. For implementation, the bill is effective immediately except for sections relating to waivers and fee in lieu. It is effective immediately after L&I, Parks, and Planning certify they are prepared to administer the waiver process, but in no event more than 60 days following the effective date. This all has been a result of the work we did even into the night to address the concerns. I want to thank you all, each and every one of my colleagues on the Rules Committee, but special kudos to Council Member Brian O'Neill. Thank you so much for all of your help and support in this process. You know you are our zoning guru, and I certainly appreciate you and all of your help and support. To BIA, Brandywine, the Philadelphia Horticultural Society, the Tree Tenders, Crow Holdings, PIDC, Bridge Development, and BSI Construction, members of the Civilian Environmental Advisory Committee. Each and every one of you are greatly appreciated for the input that we received from you and the collaborative work we've been able to do together. The amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and again, I want to thank everyone who has worked with us on this process. It has been extremely challenging, but together we are working to make an important step toward implementing recommendations called for by our residents through the tree plan, again, which was a very robust community engagement process. I also just want to pause and give a huge shout out to Eliza Alford on my team. Her hard work, her stick-to-itiveness, her never give up attitude, follow up and follow through, ability to find a yes when everything looks like no, are all attributes for us to follow. I truly appreciate her hard work on this bill. Eliza is a legislative superstar, and don't try to steal her from my office, anyone. She is a superstar, and I'm certainly glad that she is on my team. So colleagues, we've worked hard with all the stakeholders, and I humbly ask for your support for this legislation today, and I look forward to our continued work together to create a healthier, safer, and more resilient Philadelphia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Thank you for your hard work and dedication, and much appreciated that. Now, I guess we could call the panel for bill number 220414. I see Paula, you're there. If you just state your name for the record and proceed.
Well, after the councilwoman just introduced every amendment, I don't know how much I have to say, so thank you for the hard work. But I'm Paula Brumbelow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 220414, which was introduced into City Council on May 12, 2022 by Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Bill number 220414 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by revising and clarifying certain landscaping requirements and provisions and making technical changes. The bill is the first implementation effort to support the forthcoming Philly Tree Plan that was led by the Department of Parks and Recreation, which included public outreach and public involvement. This bill supports increasing the tree canopy and tree care funding in neighborhoods with high poverty rates, while working to reduce the heat disparities in neighborhoods throughout the city. This legislation will focus on several issues that impact the canopy cover of the city. The first change will be increase the landscape requirements to parking lots and buffers between uses. The bill will require the implementation of a site clearing permit for tree removal on lots of 5,000 square feet and add a process of notification of tree removals. This legislation offers further clarification on exemptions to heritage trees in industrial districts. Tree replacement requirements will increase within the city. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220414 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022 and recommended for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. I see we have Gabriella and Tim are going to also be testifying. Gabriella, or if you're available, can you just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Yes. Give me 1 second. So I was going to go a little later. My name is Gabriella. Let me open my notes.
Take your time.
Almost there. Okay. Hello, everyone. Can I start now?
Yes, yeah, just state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Gabriela Gabriel Paez. And first, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to give testimony regarding Bill 220414, better known as the tree bill. I would like to especially thank Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson for introducing this important bill. And I am a Philadelphia resident, a community organizer and activist, and have spent the last eight years of my life advocating for environmental justice in the underserved communities. And my journey started in Hunting Park with the implementation of the Hunting Park Plan. And back then, the tree coverage was only 3.9% in the area, which is very, very low. So I understand the importance of trees. And now Hunting Park is recognized as one of the hottest communities in Philadelphia as a result of the lack of tree coverage. So right now, I serve as a co-chair of the PHS Tree Tenders Advisory Committee. We plant trees in Philadelphia and across the region. I'm also part of the Philadelphia Environmental Justice Advisory Commission. And I also serve in other groups that work in environmental justice. And I was also proudly a part of the community voices that helped draft the Philly Tree Plan. So I am very excited about this and to see positive movement that, is coming from the tree plan. Because I truly believe that this is a very good first step in this process of supporting not only the planting of trees, but also protecting the trees that we already have, because we know that we are planting trees, but at the same time, we had a great loss of tree canopy coverage in the last 10, 12 years. So that is very important. And I have a couple of comments about the bill overall. Again, I believe it's a great first step. But first, the exemption provided for affordable housing is a real concern, not only to me, but also I know that colleagues that work in these fields. And it's because we know that historically our low-income communities have been discriminated against when it comes to environmental justice, from allowing certain industries in those income communities that are poisonous to them, and also the disregard for the importance of the built environment in the health of these communities. So I truly believe that as we are moving forward in the direction of environmental justice, we have to make sure that our low-income communities also have healthy places to live. And that includes designing and building housing that is healthy, that is green, and that involves trees. And it is no coincidence that our children living in Hunting Park and other low-income neighborhoods have higher asthma rates than other communities. And that is due in large part to the lack of tree coverage in those places. So I believe that this provision should be eliminated because our low-income communities deserve to have trees. They deserve to have these places where they can grow, thrive, and be healthy. And also, I would like to just bring up both appreciation and a little bit of concern with the in-lieu fee provision. I am very happy that it will be introduced and that the tree fund will be created as a result. But I also am concerned, and I want to make sure that it is not used by developers as a loophole, because we have seen it right in the past with other things, and for this provision to be appropriately enforced. And if we're introducing this, let's make sure that there's enough funding again for the appropriate number of staff to enforce this provision. So the system cannot be exploited again, because we have seen it happen in the past. And also, along these lines, I also like to see these funds to be created as a separate fund dedicated for tree work, rather than going into one large fund that, where things, just are not as clear. So that is something that both I and my colleagues have discussed, just to make sure that these funds are used exclusively for the tree work that must happen in Philadelphia. And finally, again, just going back to enforcement, I've had a lot of conversations with our colleagues that work in this field, again, our Tree Tenders Advisory Committee and other groups. And we want to make sure that, again, that apart from the bill, the Parks and Recs is properly funded to be able to supervise, right, that the plans that are submitted by developers is actually completed. Because we know that we have laws currently around trees that are sometimes, not implemented as, as stated, let's say, in an application process. So something that one of my colleagues brought up, Joy Chiabo, I'm not sure if he's here, was, for example, not issuing occupancy certificates onto developers' proof that the work has been done, and also how to follow up year after year and create that system of reporting or self-reporting. So that's an idea that I thought was great, that was brought up. And again, I'm very excited about this. I thank you all who have worked on this, and I look forward to the positive changes that this bill will bring to Philadelphia. Thank you very much.
Gabriella, thank you for your testimony. I see that Councilor Gilmore-Richardson wants to make a comment before we go to Tim.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to thank you, Gabriella, for your work and just your involvement with, the creation of the tree plan, and also just the robust engagement you had as a part of that process. And agree with you. We are seeking to increase our tree canopy, recognizing that we've had that decrease, and that it's important to fund Parks and Rec so that they can properly administer this work. And, we are actively working in that process as we speak. And so I just wanted to mention for the record that 2 of the 3 projects that are currently in the pipeline now would give at least $1.3 million to the tree fund, just 2 of the 3. And so I think that's important to notate for the record, that I think that we will be able to make a sizable difference with ensuring that we are able to replace any tree canopy that we lose, and increase tree canopy in communities that so desperately need it, particularly communities that have young people and people in general who suffer with asthma. So I just wanted to say thank you and put that on the record. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Tim, you're available to testify. Just state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Eiffel, and I'm the Director of Trees with the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. Well, thank you all for this opportunity to provide testimony on the proposed changes to the Philadelphia Code, which are aimed at protecting, growing, and maintaining Philadelphia's tree canopy goals that we certainly share here at PHS, and I'll definitely be seconding a lot of the wonderful points that Gabriella made. At PHS, our purpose is to use horticulture to advance health and well-being in our city and region, and we believe in the power of horticulture to make positive social and environmental change. Broadly speaking, this bill represents a large step forward towards implementation of changes called for in the forthcoming Philly Tree Plan, which is the city's first comprehensive plan to equitably protect and grow the urban forest. We applaud Philadelphia Parks and Recreation for leading the plan's development, and Councilmember Gilmore-Richardson and her office for leading this first step of implementation. At PHS, we believe that we must shift perceptions of trees from nice-to-have amenities enjoyed predominantly by largely white, wealthy neighborhoods to a vital and fundamental element of every Philadelphia neighborhood. All Philadelphians, no matter what their zip code, deserve to live in a clean, green, and safe environment, and trees are a huge piece of this equation. In addition to their obvious environmental and climate benefits, trees have been shown to increase safety in neighborhoods and improve mental health, among many other benefits. And for decades, PHS's Tree Tenders program has worked across the city, hand in hand with volunteers and neighborhood leaders, to plant and steward mostly street trees. All told, close to 6,000 community members have been trained as tree tenders by PHS, and there are over 80 active volunteer-driven tree tender groups working today. And these groups together plant more than 2,000 trees every year. In fact, we may be hitting close to 3,000 this year. And this past April, we continued to raise the bar by putting more than 1,500 trees in the ground across our city and region. And equity is a big central focus of this work, striving to build capacity and prioritize our tree plantings in low canopy neighborhoods in line with the Philly Tree Plan's goals. But despite these benefits that trees provide and the successes that PHS and our partners have had in getting trees planted, as you know, a 2018 city assessment found that our canopy has declined by 6% in the 10 years from 2008 to 2018, in large part due to new development. And much of this reduction was seen in canopy loss on residential streets. And that's partly why we believe this ordinance is so important, amending the code to better protect, preserve, and replace trees threatened by development in the city. It also represents the first steps to codify recommendations that will be called for in the upcoming tree plan. In addition to this legislation, we urge you to support the plan's implementation through budgetary and programmatic means as well, and certainly many of those points that Gabrielle alluded to along those lines. And with all that in mind, I just wanted to bring a few specific points of feedback on the proposed bill to your attention. First off, we are definitely pleased with the mandatory fee in lieu mechanism for addressing trees that go unplanted on relevant parcels. And we believe that raising the levels is appropriate, especially the $1,500 for street trees, which will more accurately reflect the cost of planting in appropriate areas than I believe it's the $500 currently in the code. We also strongly believe that the fees generated from this mechanism should be placed in a dedicated tree fund for use on planting projects, as discussed, especially in priority low canopy neighborhoods that will be identified in the Philly tree plan. Regarding the proposed exemption for housing projects with 51% or more affordable units, we believe that residents of affordable housing units deserve access to trees as much as anyone else, and we question whether the affordable housing exemption could hinder our own and the Philly Tree Plan's goals to equitably restore tree cover across all Philadelphia neighborhoods, again, starting with the highest priority areas. We are also concerned about the change to the minimum plant size proposed in this bill. While larger caliper trees are definitely appropriate for many situations, we worry about potentially precluding the use of 1.5-inch caliper bare root trees, such as those used by tree tenders, which have contributed greatly to Philadelphia's urban forest. We'll also note that smaller caliper trees will quickly catch up to larger caliper trees in growth, thanks to faster establishment times, and also that there is some evidence that higher caliper trees have lower survivability rates as well. Our recommendation is to keep the 2-inch measurement, but also add language that allows for discretion by PPR staff for certain exemptions, such as the 1.5-inch bare root stock, widely used across the city by tree tenders. On the issue of landscape buffers, we're unsure if the tall grasses provide the same environmental value to the communities as shrubs do. We'll also add that while many evergreen species are excellent to use in urban buffers, we question whether the simple 50% ratio mentioned in the bill with no other specifications on species or forms is appropriate. We strongly suggest whether in the bill itself or in administrative proceedings that the city take steps to ensure the planting of as many native species as possible. We're strongly supportive of the proposed changes to yard tree requirements and would be even more supportive of a denser rate requirement, i.e. 1 tree per 1,000 or even 12,000, or I'm sorry, 1,000 or 1,200 square feet. Finally, we must emphasize the importance of strong protections of heritage trees. These heritage trees provide the greatest environmental benefit to our city and communities, and preserving existing large trees will be absolutely critical to achieving the goals of the Philly Tree Plan. Further, while tree preservation plan regulations may be beyond the scope of this bill, we would like to see robust protections for the root zone areas of all protected trees, especially related to severing roots and soil compaction during construction. Once again, thank you for the time and opportunity to share our perspective. I'd welcome any questions, and I certainly look forward to continued progress on this bill and future legislation to protect and grow our urban forest. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, and I see we may have some others to testify, but I know Councilmember Gilmore Richardson wants to make a comment.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Mr. Eiffel for his remarks and for all the suggestions that were sent. We did incorporate a number of the suggestions that you mentioned in your testimony in the amendment. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of your work in this process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. And I believe there was somebody else who's logged in who wanted to testify. on this bill, number 220414?
Yes, Mary Collins, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mary, if you're available, just state your name for the record and you can proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Mary Collins.
Please proceed with your testimony.
My name is Mary Collins, Operations Manager at U.S. Construction. I am testifying today in my role as co-chair of the Government Affairs Committee for the Building Industry Association of Philadelphia. I want to thank the council members and the members of the committee for allowing me to testify today. The BIA is a trade association of mostly residential developers working throughout Philadelphia. We support the creation of a tree fund and efforts to increase the city's tree canopy. There is no doubt that trees are a tremendous quality of life asset to any neighborhood, and the BIA believes it is important to address inequities in the tree canopy throughout the city. Trees and well-planted landscaping enhance our projects and benefit our final occupants as well as their near neighbors. We appreciate that Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and her team met with our organization and considered our feedback. BIA wishes to express a few remaining areas of concern in hopes that it will aid in making the bill and the implementation successful. With regards to the implementation, the BIA remains somewhat apprehensive that there are still several areas of the bill that are vague from a regulatory and implementation standpoint. While we are encouraged by the diligent and detailed and thoughtful approach of Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson and her staff, we are anxious for clarification on a few items, as it will rely on other departments to create regulations. And with that, planning's regulations yet to be written concerning the fee in lieu process and how we might navigate the application, waiver, and approval process during the time between the legislation is effective until those new regulations are adopted by the city. It is really important to our membership to have predictability and clear guidelines for successful applications and reduce risk of administrative delays. And then finally, the BIA is eager for insights into how L&I or planning will enforce the requirements of the bill, particularly where amendments or updates are required. But we truly appreciate the opportunity to testify and remain open and willing to collaborate with the city in effort to best support the goal of increasing the tree canopies and hoping that that benefit can be enjoyed by all residents.
Thank you for your testimony. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, I want to make a comment. You're muted.
I apologize, Mr. Chair, again, because of the late nature of circulating the amendments and everyone needing to prepare their testimony. I wanted to say thank you to Mary. She has just been stellar working with my team on this process. And we appreciate all the feedback you've given us, particularly on the notification and regulation, which resulted in several of the amendments that we have that have been circulated and finally presented to the committee. And we look forward to continuing to work with you, particularly as that bill is implemented. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you all for your testimony. Is there any questions from the committee? Is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 220414? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Harris, can you please read the next bill and the panel will testify?
Mr. Chair, this is bill number 220358, and I believe that there is an amendment that Councilmember Jones is prepared to summarize.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Jones. If you'd like to summarize the amendment to bill number 220358.
Mr. Chair, this is Josh Cohen. I don't believe the council member is on, but I'll be happy to summarize the amendment if that is okay.
Sure, Mr. Cohen, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We are offering an amendment to Bill number 220358. It is a small amendment in subsection C. We are seeking to change one word from the word property to building lines in reference to setback of roof decks. And we are striking the deletion in the bill to its original in the original bill, so it will remain the same to say accessory parking shall be provided in a surface lot, not a garage, in subsection D. And that is the extent of our amendments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Josh, for that clarity on the amendment. I see that we do have other people to testify on 220358. Paula Brumbelow Burns, if you want to go first, state your name for the record and proceed, and then we'll go to the other testifiers.
I'm Paula Brumbelow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220358, which was introduced into City Council on April 28, 2022 by Councilmember Jones. Bill number 220358 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by revising the Ridge Avenue Neighborhood Commercial Area Overlay District. The bill was requested by several RCOs to address the recent influx of development over the past 5 years. There are technical changes to the overlay, including a reorganization of the text and clarifying that lots can hold off-site parking. The bill aligns the design review process into similar language used in other neighborhood commercial areas, NCAs, and the overlay becomes more permissive to allow for more business uses on the commercial corridor, allow for increased expansion of non-conforming businesses, and allows both surface parking and garage parking for projects. That was part of the amendment. The overlay becomes more restrictive in setting significant limitations on the potential for development. The first is to create an increased parking requirement of 1 space to 1 residential unit for over 5 units, which may create additional cars driving on the already congested Ridge Avenue. The second is to create a height maximum of 38 feet and 3 stories, and to limit density by removing the green roof bonus. Within the lowering of building height from 45 feet to 4 stories, it will make the mixed income density bonus obsolete in this area and has been removed from the overlay. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 220358 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and recommended for approval with amendments to remove the new parking requirement and to remove the provisions that reduce height requirements. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. We have Kay, and then we'll have Celeste after that. Kay, if you just want to state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kay Sakura, and I appreciate having the opportunity to testify for Bill 220358. So I am a resident of Roxborough, and I am involved in the Roxborough Civic Group through Central Roxborough Civic Association. We're requesting the Philadelphia Rules Committee vote to support the changes recommended for the Ridge Avenue Commercial Area Overlay. We see these changes as a Phase 1 solution as we continue to work with the Philadelphia Planning Commission on Phase 2 over the coming months. This district is approximately 3 miles long with new construction along the entire length. The group working with the Planning Commission includes 4 RCOs and a range of different conditions along the length of the area. There will be different outcomes for different portions of this district, and we wish to be thoughtful about what happens. We would like to underscore that we all, along with the Roxborough Development Corporation, have been working directly with the Planning Commission for a number of months and have committed to working with the Planning Commission throughout the summer and fall for a permanent overlay for the Ridge Avenue District. As a community, we were in 2014 an early group to initiate working with the city on a long-term planning for our community. The resulting overlay compared to a number of the adjacent communities in the Northwest has some of the loosest criteria, including the highest building heights, compounded by bonuses, very inadequate facade controls, and small parking ratios for development. As a result of which, we now have the largest influx of apartment construction in the northwest section of the city. The resulting development has proved overwhelming to our community. This 3 miles long district has new construction along the entire length. In the past 5 years, 17 apartment buildings have been built or are about to be built. This is approximately one every 1,000 feet and have added 900 units to the community, representing a potential influx of 1,200 to 1,800 people and nearly as many cars. In addition, for example, where I live on the top of Green Lane, while this is not part of the commercial overlay, there are 2 apartment complexes within 1 block of Ridge Avenue, adding 50 units to the community with no parking. A couple blocks down within a block of Ridge Avenue is another complex on Fountain Street that's adding 50 to 55 units, again with no parking. So adding to the concerns within the community, another note is in some cases, these large complexes are built up to 5 to 10 feet of 1- and 2-story single residential properties. As a community, we believe that responsible new development gives life to the community. But we are also an old 19th century community with roads built before cars and the main street of Ridge Avenue being where most of the development is currently being built. Ridge Avenue is where all the truck traffic comes through the community. It is our commercial district and the primary road through the neighborhood. Roxborough Development Corporation has initiated thinking about traffic flows and impacts with Otis as a part of the work that needs to be done. The theory that apartment dwellers will use public transportation in the city instead of having cars is not true for Roxborough. We are on the outer edge of the city and many folks need cars to get to work in the suburbs. We are very pleased to be a vital part of the city. We just feel that this enormous surge of building is dramatically changing the character of our neighborhood, and we ask for an opportunity to build consensus and provide for a more planned outcome. So thank you.
Thank you, Kay, for your testimony. And I know we have Celeste, I think you're next, if you just want to state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Celeste Hardister, representing several RCOs up and down the ridge in the lower northwest, including Wissahickon, Central Roxborough, and Ridge Park. I did turn my camera off, but I don't see the image anyhow. In 2018...
Just for the record, we do see you.
Okay, good. Thank you. In 2018, the Ridge Avenue Thematic Historic District was designated, protecting some 180 buildings. This designation provides a tool for Roxborough to hold on to its character as it evolves in the 21st century. Surrounding these historic buildings is an array of structures that were built mid-century and forward. Many are past their peak, and most were never very special to begin with. They often sit on deep lots and have become attractive to developers of multifamily dwelling units, 17 and counting in just 5 years, with many more adjacent to the ridge. While apartment buildings are an outcome we support and believe should be on the ridge, no one expected that so many would be built so quickly. Our concern now is that despite the protection provided by the historic district, the character and livability of Roxborough is at risk of being significantly altered. The mix of history and well-planned modern development could be eclectic and exciting, but that is not what we're seeing. We are concerned that the community won't have staying appeal and keep people living, shopping, and eating here. It also feels like this is a chance to improve affordable housing needs, so we would welcome height bonuses that result in actual affordable units. We think an enormously good opportunity is being missed, and we view this as a watershed moment that will determine a lot about Ridge Avenue for the coming decades, well past 2035. People in Roxborough travel in all directions because this area lends itself to getting to the suburbs and the city. That said, commuters are becoming increasingly difficult. Located between the Schuylkill River and Wissahickon Creek, Roxborough is actually virtually an island with only 5 ways out, 5 exit points. During commuting hours, it can take 30 minutes just to cross Green Lane Bridge. Current residents are concerned about what more cars are going to do to their commute and where they will be parked at night. Public transit combined with personal automobile use deserve an updated review as part of all that is happening. In part, this initiative is a response to the way the parking requirement in the existing overlay is currently being interpreted by L&I. Developers are somehow getting permits that should have been refused for not abiding by the surface parking requirement. Multiple buildings that should not have been permitted are already up or are underway. Because no surface parking is being provided, the buildings are larger than they should be. Frankly, this has created what feels like an emergency condition that necessitates a response now. There are still multiple sites available for continued development of multifamily dwelling units. This bill is phase one of a two-phase effort that we are committed to working with the Commission to complete by this fall. We thank Councilman Jones for his support of this bill. Thank you.
Celeste, thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions from the committee for the people who testify? Is there anyone else to testify on the bill number 220358? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the panel for bill number 220417?
Paula Brumlow Burns, Marlene Schleifer, and John Carpenter.
Thank you, Paul. If you want to state your name for the record again and just proceed with your testimony.
All right. Good afternoon, members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Brumlow Burns, Director of Legislation for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on bill number 220417, which was introduced into City Council on May 12, 2022 by Councilmember Jones. Bill number 220417 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by changing the zoning section 14-30311A entitled Registered Community Organizations by establishing a fund to be used by registered community organizations to obtain legal representation for hearings and appeals before the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The bill directs the Director of Finance to establish a legal fund to be used by registered community organizations, RCOs, to pay for legal representation for hearings and appeals before the ZBA. While the Planning Commission recognizes the bill's intent to create a more equitable zoning process and increase access to expertise, we feel that the bill does not adequately address this need and has several significant shortcomings. RCOs have equal standing in zoning appeals as any other private group or citizen, so having funding set aside specifically for RCOs could be legally problematic. It also remains unclear exactly how regulations would be created to set boundaries for the distribution of funds, which RCOs would qualify, at what point in the process legal representation would be appointed, and other significant details. Further, the Commission is concerned that the potential cost to the city of legal representation of the sort proposed in this bill, which could be substantial, has not been estimated. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 220417 at its meeting of June 9th, 2022, and did not recommend approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Paul, for your testimony. I guess we'll go to Marlene and then John. Marlene, just state your name for the record, and then you can proceed with your testimony.
Okay. Good afternoon, all. My name is Marlene Schleifer. I am president of Ridge Park Civic Association, located in Roxborough. I am also the RCO representative. And our group is terribly beleaguered by developers wishing to put just about anything up. What I would like to do is defer my limited commentary after John Carpenter's, if you don't mind, so because he has a little bit more structured speech to make, and I have no problem with him saying his spiel, and then I will comment.
Not a problem. We'll hold your testimony till after Mr. Carpenter's testimony. So, John, just state your name for the record, proceed with your testimony, and then we'll go back to Marlene.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today regarding Bill number 220417. My name is John Carpenter. I am the president of the Central Roxborough Civic Association, a 501c3 nonprofit. We are a registered civic association that frequently reviews requests for zoning variances. In addition to our well-attended public meetings, We also offer developers the opportunity to meet with our zoning committee to get constructive feedback from our team of neighbors who are also architects, planners, engineers, and developers. This feedback often results in improvements to project designs that help secure community support for their success. Our volunteers donate hundreds of hours each year in this process. But we are a small membership organization with individual dues of only $10 annually and $25 for businesses. These dues generate less than $2,000 in regular income for us. But we spend $5,000 to $10,000 a year in each of the last 5 years on legal fees so that we can be represented at the Zoning Board of Adjustment and to pursue appeals of decisions to local and state courts. We are able to do this only through generous donations of affected neighbors and a small handful of generous civic-minded residents. Our role is critical to the zoning review process, but is completely unfunded. We therefore support the proposed fund for RCO legal fees to lift some of this financial burden from our organizations and to help us continue to support the broad community engagement the city counts on. We thank Council Members Jones and Squilla for their leadership on this matter. We recognize that the bill as drafted does not offer details of how these funds will be managed, and we offer our help to develop those details in the coming months. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Marlene, do you want to have your testimony now?
Absolutely. As I said, my name is Marlene Schleifer. I'm the president of Ridge Park Civic, and I'm also its RCO rep and a friend of John Carpenter's and all of his cohorts at CRCA. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I just wanted to echo everything that John said. We are in a similar position. We receive no funding from anyone. Our dues are $10 per person per year and $50 per business. So maybe John ought to think about increasing the amount they charge to the businesses. We have basically had no fundraising during the pandemic because we really can't. So we rely on contributions from neighbors and subsidy from me personally. Thank God I'm now receiving Social Security so I can do it. And I don't want any Philly taxpayer to assume that the RCOs run up legal bills unnecessarily. We do not. We think long and hard about which projects we will support and which we will oppose. And if we feel that a project is really unwise, we will reject it and push it as far as we have to in the appeal process. Also, I just wanted to let you know that our current legal bills, and our lawyer charges us at a discount, a significant discount, are presently at $13,500. So if we collect a couple thou in dues every year and we pay out insurance premiums, which we do to protect our officers and also to have a general liability policy, there's not a whole lot left. And, I feel very strongly that this bill should go forward, and I thank the Councilman Squilla and Councilman Jones for their support. And that's about it. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Much appreciated. And we know how hard our RCOs work. It's a volunteer basis. It's a lot of headaches and complaints even from your own neighbors as you go through these processes. So we know we're not, and this is not a process to sue everybody. This is a process to protect the RCOs. So, I know there's concerns from folks on this, but I mean, our RCOs are our street level personnel who are engaged with their communities, and they need to have that ability to have some detail of protection as they continue to help the city manage the growth and development. So thank you for your comments and for all your testimony. Is there anyone else to testify on bill number 220417? Seeing none and no other questions?
Yes, Mark. Jim Moransky here for the BIA.
Oh, Jim, how are you, pal? Jim, just state your name and then proceed with your testimony.
Sure. James Moransky. testifying on behalf of the Building Industry Association. My name is Jim Moransky. I'm the past president of the BIA, a trade association of mostly residential developers working throughout Philadelphia, along with professionals who provide them with products and services. I also co-chair the BIA's Government Affairs Committee. I want to thank Chairman Johnson and the rest of the committee for allowing me to provide testimony today on Bill 220417. This legislation would create a city fund for RCOs to obtain lawyers for hearings of zoning board in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The BIA would like to ask the sponsor to hold this bill and meet with all stakeholders over the summer to further discuss its implications and potential implementation. We acknowledge that there is a glaring disparity between the well-organized and well-funded RCOs in some neighborhoods and the others that are not. But that does not mean that every ZBA hearing should have more lawyers and that every ZBA decision should be appealed, as will likely be the result. This bill proposes that the very taxes that developers pay will be used to delay their projects from finishing. It also proposes that the city provide funds for lawyers to tell RCOs how to better be able to sue the city and one of its own boards, which makes no sense at all. If there is always an RCO lawyer at ZBA hearings, RCOs are going to be appealing more and more ZBA decisions, and developers will find it near impossible to be able to sign a purchase agreement on land. There are too many questions about how this fund would be administered, but it is hard to imagine any RCO ever declining the opportunity for free legal counsel on any ZBA issue. And so the thousands and possibly millions of dollars that will be spent could be better spent keeping our city safe. Meanwhile, the truth is that the RCO process is badly in need of reform and oversight. It makes no sense for the city to pay for lawyers to second guess why permits were issued and ZBA decisions were rendered. This proposal greatly increases the chance of even more frivolous lawsuits being filed, which further helps prevent badly needed housing from being built and more jobs and investments created. The BIA asks the sponsor to please hold the bill and take a step back and work with us together over the summer. And we ask the members of the Rules Committee to not support the bill as written. As written, there's serious question on the extent and the limits of this bill, as well as the implementation. Does this extend to appeals at the higher court levels? In some areas, there's 5 RCOs that would have ruling over certain developments. Are we really saying that we're going to have 5 additional attorneys at those RCO hearings? You know, the BIA has a ton of questions on how this bill will be implemented. And as written, we're asking that it be tabled to allow us to come together and work towards some common goals and solutions over the summer. Thank you for your consideration.
Jim, thank you so much for your testimony. And I know Councilman Jones is always available to talk, and I think we will continue to have conversations going forward on this legislation. Is there any questions from the committee on Mr. Moransky or any other people who testified? Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody else to testify on this bill, bill number 220417? Thank you all for your testimony. Thank you, Jim. Mr. Harris, is there any other bills before us today?
No, Mr. Chair. That's all the bills for today. We do have public comment. Okay, so that'll be it for testimony. Thank you all who had testified. Hearing that there's no other people to testify, no other questions. At this time, the committee will take a brief pause to allow members of the public who have registered for public comment to be called into the virtual meeting. I guess we'll give everybody right now, that's 1:59, so I guess 2:05. Modesto, I think we have everybody on there. It seems like it's a big list of people.
Mr. Chair, is it possible to start the live broadcast? I would say maybe about 2:15.
2:15?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine with me. All right, we'll come back at 2:15. So for public comment, and then we'll have everybody connected so they could give their input on the list of legislation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Chair, we are now live.
Thank you. We will now continue our public comment portion of the hearing today. We will now hear the testimony of those who have signed up for public comment. The clerk will call your name, and once called, please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony. Mr. Harris, can you please call the person to testify in public comment? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first witness is Mark Zachary.
When you're called, just state your name for the record if you're connected and then proceed with your testimony.
Yes, hello. My name is Mark Zachary. I am a resident of the 7th District. I'm here to testify on a couple of bills today, the first one being 220323. This is the TOD overlay, and it is so sad that these overlays weren't initiated years ago for these transit stations. And what's even sadder is the fact that Girard Station hasn't been included, nor is York Dolphin, which is my home station. It's not just sad, it's an outrageous dereliction of legislative duty by this body for years, and now to compound it by not including one of the most transit accessible locations in the city in Girard, in the Girard L stop. It's actually, there's no explanation for it besides there's a few neighbors who don't want increased height and density and more residents in an area that needs residents, that needs more housing, and that has commercial corridors that could be activated by increased density along these incredible corridors that we have existing in the L. We have the ability to have an incredibly transit-oriented line already in place and paid for that could be even more utilized by an increased density along this important stop. It's just, and then not only the designation is the problem to me is the bonuses for the bill. I know this isn't part of the bill, but the bonuses should be way higher. You should be allowing buildings that are 100, 200 feet along these L stops, period. There's no excuse to do it another way. And then I'm also here to say that 220358, this is that Ridge Ave overlay. I mean, this is another example of like a exclusionary and backward-looking zoning bill that basically listens to some neighbors who don't want their neighborhood to change at all and think that they have the right to tell property owners what they can do with their own property. And it goes back in history. It's an exclusionary policy to zone these areas down instead of raising them up and allowing more residents to come in. And it speaks to affordability issues and climate change, the need to be people on mass transit and less parking. All that kind of speaks into that same thing. And then in addition, the 220417, this is probably the worst bill that I've ever seen, that you're encouraging RCOs that make subjective decisions about zoning. You're giving them public tax dollars, my tax dollars, everyone's tax dollars, to hire lawyers to go before the ZBA because they're mad about increased density or 7 or 8 feet in height or what they perceive as a lack of parking. Believe me, there's plenty of people who don't think like that. Are the city going to give them lawyers? I don't think so. It's unconscionable. It's laughable that this is actually being suggested in this great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for your testimony. Appreciate it. Mr. Harris, please, next person to testify.
Next witness is David Stepanek. Mr. Stepanek?
Mr. Stepanek is not connected.
Next witness is Kat Kendon.
Hello?
Kat, yeah, just state your name for the record. Kat, we hear you, and then proceed with your testimony.
Right. Hi, my name is Kat Nania Kendon,
and I am part of the steering committee for Design Advocacy Group, and I'm also an active Sierra Club volunteer and PHS tree tender. I want to express my general support of the Councilman's Bill 220414. It's clearly a significant step forward where there are currently minimal protections for or planting requirements for trees. I particularly support the creation of the Philly Tree Fund and the fee and lieu system. While the fee structure proposed in the bill could still use adjustment, the system sets a stage for funding equitable canopy growth by capturing value in the development process. I also support folding tree reviews into the L&I review process. Hopefully this will allow for real enforcement of tree policies, which doesn't exist now, and also puts tree reviews near the beginning of the design process instead of at the end as an afterthought. I appreciate the creation of a stronger community communication system around tree removal and the acknowledgement for the necessity of tree planting and protection standards. I want to particularly note support for the removal of the exemption of parks from regulation. While this bill includes some other exemptions that should be reconsidered, removing parks from the exemption list will fundamentally support the city's climate goals and also help build trust between the city and communities. So with all those supportive notes, it's clear the bill can go farther. Since the proposed bill was released, I've had extensive conversations with developers, architects, and landscape architects. In those conversations, the proposed exemptions have raised the most concerns. I strongly support the reduction of site exemptions over time, if not immediately. The 5,000 square foot lot threshold removes the vast majority of development sites in Philadelphia, and it misses an enormous opportunity for planting and protecting trees. The exemption is actually unnecessary with the fee system because planting requirements can be covered by payments into the tree fund. Exempting affordable housing also raises concerns. While I support affordable housing efforts, it should be coupled with support for environmental justice. The exemption of affordable housing may actually worsen conditions in communities that have fewer green spaces, chronically poor canopy coverage, and which also suffer from higher temperatures and poor air quality. Residents of affordable housing have the most to gain from increased tree canopy. This is an opportunity for the city to right historic wrongs. Second opportunity to strengthen the bill is through the refinement of the fee structures. The fees should be structured to discourage tree loss. I have a lot to say on this topic, but I'll summarize by saying that the fee structure should be adapted to replace trees by trunk area instead of diameter. Large established trees are more capable of mitigating stormwater, air pollution, and carbon, and that cannot effectively be replaced with only an equivalent diameter inches of saplings. Lastly, Philadelphia should adopt best practices that are common in other major cities. This includes items such as establishment of a city forester position, requirements around native and invasive plantings, requirements for care and maintenance, and considerations around irrigation and stormwater. I will be submitting detailed comments to the Councilwoman's office and greatly look forward to the strengthening and passage of this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kat, for your testimony. And for the record, everybody has been following so far, but there's a 3-minute testimony time that will be held by Mr. Harris. So if you think it's longer than 3 minutes, please try to consolidate it 2 to 3 minutes. Everybody's been good so far. Mr. Harris, can you please read the next person to testify?
Chris Bordelon.
Chris, if you're connected, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Bordelon. I'm here to testify about Bill 220414. I'm an attorney on the longest-serving current board member of the Somerton Civic Association. Our organization has hosted tree giveaways with Tree Philly since 2017. I also served on the Urban Forest Strategic Plan Community Voices Committee that provided input regarding the Philly Tree Plan. Now, in principle, the law should discourage developers from cutting down trees and shrubs and encourage planting. This bill uses fees and zoning and land use regulations to do that, and both methods could help. But this bill needs to be amended before it becomes law, because it would establish loopholes that would defeat what I take to be the bill's purpose of preserving and expanding the tree canopy. At section 14705F1, the bill says that the special exception process for removing heritage trees does not apply to a strangely worded class of parcels of property owned by PIDC to be developed as warehouses. Similarly, at Section 14705C9D, the bill's in lieu fee owed by developers for removing trees is subject to a 5% cap for that same strangely worded class of parcels. These loophole provisions should not be in the bill. They defeat its purpose. They relate to a few parcels in Northeast Philadelphia owned by PIDC that it wants to develop as Amazon-type warehouses. The loophole provisions will allow developers to destroy heritage trees in those lots without community participation in the development process, and will allow developers to cut down many acres of forested land without having to pay the costs that this bill would otherwise impose. For example, the lots at 11430 and 11450 Northeast Avenue consist of 50 acres of thickly forested PIDC land directly adjacent to a large residential development in Somerton. These loophole provisions would cut neighbors there out of a development process that they should be a part of, and would let a developer off without paying for the enormous damage caused. The city's efforts to increase its tree canopy will be set back 50 acres in one fell swoop. How many years of tree planting efforts in Philly does it take to plant 50 acres? The loopholes are written in confusing legerdemain. They're buried there, presumably so that people affected will have difficulty understanding. There's no valid justification for it, only greed and a lack of care about people and the environment they live in. Please don't pass the loophole provisions. If they reflect district council members' wishes, and you won't be able to set aside councilmanic prerogative, please cut the loopholes out of this bill. Require them to be introduced as part of a separate bill so that people affected will better understand how their government is operating and whose interest it's representing. Not their own interests, but property developers' interests. Also, the bill calls for an 8-foot fence buffer between an industrial and a residential district. The bill should be amended to require a higher fence. Industrial uses like warehouses involve a lot of tractor-trailer parking. Those vehicles are often 13.5 feet high. Now, where commercial vehicles are parked next to people's houses, the fence ought to be at least as tall as the vehicles. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Harris, please announce the next person to testify.
Win Costantini.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Win, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, I'm Win Costantini. I'm speaking on behalf of Green Building United, and we would like to express our support for Bill 220414. As a nonprofit organization that promotes sustainability in the built environment, we support legislation that improves both building performance as well as the health and well-being of those buildings' inhabitants. And efforts to equitably preserve and expand Philadelphia's urban tree canopy will do just that. Urban trees can play a significant role in building energy performance, as properly sited and well-maintained trees reduce building cooling loads through prevention of incident solar radiation on both residential and commercial building facades. As we've already heard today in this hearing, preserving and expanding Philadelphia's urban canopy is vital for both climate resilience and public health. And urban trees can also benefit our local economy and workforce. There's currently an unprecedented labor shortage in the urban forestry industry with over 8,000 open positions annually for tree trimmers and pruners alone. And communities with the fewest urban trees also tend to be low-income communities of color with high rates of unemployment. Philadelphia is already a leader in the equitable urban forestry workforce development area through PowerCore PHL's Urban Forestry Academy. Both yard and street trees can also increase property values, and trees in business districts have been shown to increase money and time spent by shoppers in these areas. However, with these economic benefits come the potential for gentrification and displacement, and without intentional and equitable planning and implementation, measures for tree cover in these neighborhoods can lead to displacement of long-term residents. And strategies to prevent this gentrification include renter protections, preservation and creation of home ownership for low-income residents, job creation for existing residents, as well as protecting existing and incentivizing new affordable housing. We applaud this ordinance's effort to strengthen the preservation and replacement of urban canopy, as well as the improved buffers and increased requirements for yard trees. And we also support the creation of the Philly Tree Fund, which we hope can be used for city-led planting programs, maintenance of the city's expanding urban forest, creating new urban forestry jobs and training programs, as well as continued community engagement processes to ensure that the canopy is expanded equitably. Our main concern is the current exemption in the bill for affordable housing developments or housing projects with 51% affordable units. which does not seem to align with the goal of an equitable canopy. While we support incentives for affordable housing, residents of affordable housing units also deserve the benefit of trees on their properties. And moreover, neighborhoods with affordable housing are more likely to be neighborhoods in need of protection and expansion of tree cover. Green Building United strongly believes that this ordinance, with the changes in response to our concerns regarding the affordable housing exemption, is a vital step in Philadelphia's efforts to create an equitable and expansive urban forest, and more broadly, to create a healthy, safe, and environmentally just city. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Harris, can you please read the next person to testify?
Michael Devine.
Michael, if you're there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, just state your name for the record. We hear you fine, and proceed with your testimony.
Got you, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Devine. I am the Executive Director of the Roxborough Development Corporation, and I'm testifying on Bill number 220358. Since 2003, the RDC has managed the Business Improvement District in Roxborough and has worked hard to promote economic development on the commercial corridor. Our mission is to provide Roxborough residents with high-quality shopping, dining, and entertainment experiences. In alignment with this mission, I'm submitting testimony today to urge the Council not to support Bill number 220358, introduced by Councilmember Jones, which seeks to amend certain provisions to the Ridge Avenue Neighborhood Commercial Area Overlay District. As you may be aware, a coalition of civic associations in Roxborough have collaborated on identifying changes to the overlay. While the RDC participated in this collaboration and agrees with many aspects of these revisions, there are a few critical provisions which, if modified, will have a detrimental effect on the future of the corridor. As such, the RDC does not support the proposed ordinance in its entirety. The changes are antithetical to the intent of the NCA overlay and the lower Northwest District Plan as originally crafted. The proposed 3-story cap, the 38-foot height limitation, and the 1-to-1 parking requirement will severely limit economic development potential on the ridge. The RDC believes a 4-story cap, a 42-foot height limitation, and a lesser parking ratio is a compromise on current conditions. The extent to which the proposal limits height and requires parking will disincentivize the development of new mixed-use commercial spaces. Though the civic associations in Roxborough represent an important constituency, they provide only one voice in a community that is attracting new families and young professionals to the hundreds of residential units recently built in the neighborhood. Furthermore, the voices and interests of property owners and businesses on Ridge Avenue who are most directly impacted by the changes in the overlay must not be discarded. The RDC urges the Rules Committee not to support the bill as crafted. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Harris, please read the next person to testify.
Sarah McGinnis.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah McGinnis, and I am the Executive Director of the Greater Philadelphia chapter of NAIOP. NAIOP is a 501c6 organization that represents the commercial real estate development community in Philadelphia, and it is also part of the Philadelphia Real Estate Alliance. Thank you to Councilmember Squilla and the rest of the Committee of the Whole for permitting me to testify in opposition to Bill number 220417. This bill's proposal to create a legal fund with public dollars for RCOs has the potential to further increase the administrative burden of moving real estate development through the public approval process. This fund will utilize taxpayer dollars to provide resources for RCOs to challenge ZBA decisions, for example, a body which is already funded by taxpayer dollars. Passing this bill will only add to the difficulties of development in Philadelphia, including affordable housing, especially during a time of rising capital and construction costs. We anticipate increasing legal challenges could extend development approvals 6 months to a year. Ultimately, we believe this is yet another measure that could result in an overall decrease in development and tax revenue in Philadelphia. As a result, we do not support Bill number 220417 and ask that it be held in committee. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Harris, please read the next person to testify.
Crystal Morris.
Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Morris. I'm president of the Winfield Residents Association and member of the citywide RCO Coalition. The quality of our neighborhood should not be predicated on our ability to pay legal fees. RCOs with financial means can afford to fight, while less affluent communities must often accept whatever is forced upon them. This is the true inequity of development. Many RCO leaders are forced to attend ZBA hearings without representation and plead our case against seasoned zoning attorneys. Sometimes we prevail, but more often than not, our arguments are dismissed based on legalities. Thank you, Council Members Jones and Squila, for this forward-thinking legislation. While lacking in specifics, it's the beginning of a potential paradigm shift. We desperately need an RCO legal fund to level the playing field. We are Davids running through our communities with stones trying to take down Goliath, and we need some support. Knowing communities have the financial capability of using the legal system will put aggressive developers on notice that residents have one more tool in their arsenal to push back. We deserve a voice in how our communities are developed and ask that you vote to move forward Bill number 220417 to help legitimize our voice. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Harris, please read the next name to testify.
The next name is Benita Cummings.
Ms. Cummings is not connected.
Reverend Chester Williams.
Good evening, everyone. God bless you all. I'm Reverend Chester H. Williams, President and founder of the Chew and Belfield Neighborhood Organization 501c3. We've been founded since 1981. I'd like to make this short and brief. I believe the bill that I support as Chew and Belfield President and the neighbors is 220417. I pray that I wrote that number down right. We are asking you to look and see and to hear the cry of the constituents. We are a 501c3, and the RCOs was united together to represent and speak on behalf of the grassroots peoples. That's the voters. Some groups have financial situations that they can afford legal support. We that are 501c3s as grassroots groups do not have that money to hire a lawyer. But yet you ask us to be the voice of the residents. The voice of the residents, which are the people of the city of Philadelphia, cannot afford, and we asking you that anyone that opposes funding for legal representation, check their budget. See if they have money already to hire one. But we do not, and we cannot proclaim that we do. As I said to our council people some time ago, and most of you know me, I take my Social Security check, parts of it, and help put the money together that we can pay for our liability insurance. We're asking you to step in where you need to be to help us financially. We speak for the people wholeheartedly to let you know they're crying out to you. Give them the backbone that they need to stand up against these lawyers and other people that's telling them and dictating to them what should be in their neighborhood. We live here. We know what we want. We know what we need. And we ask you to hear the cry of the people, and we pray that you all turn an open ear and understand that we need support of this bill to support financial situation. If we need a lawyer, that the city has the funds set aside to help support us to speak on our behalf. May God bless you all, and I pray all stay safe.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Harris, can you please read the next person to testify?
Louis Baum.
Louis?
Louis is not connected.
Okay.
Linda Bell.
Linda
Is Linda connected?
She is not connected.
She's not connected. Okay.
Gail Mack.
Gail, is Gail connected?
Gail was not connected.
Okay.
Adrian Fernandez.
She is connected, but she's requesting to testify at the end of the list, please.
Okay, for the record, Councilmember Johnson is back, and I could turn the chair back over to Councilmember Johnson. There's still a couple people to testify in the public comment period, and then when we go into the public meeting, I'll be able to follow that process. So, Councilmember Johnson, are you available?
Yep, I'm available. Just want to personally say thank you for working with me in regards to me having to address some issues in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's only a couple more people for public comment.
Mr. Chair, can I call the next witness? Rosalind McKelvey.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosalind McKelvey, and I'm from Germantown. I'm an RCO of the Wakefield 49ers Community Improvement and Development Association, and I'm on the line in favor of the presented Bill 220417, with some revisions. A lot of our constituents here are low income, deaf, disabled, elderly, and the RCO is the only element of community involvement that they can have and do have. We do not have funds, and by the RCO requiring us to have, the RCO has to have already liability insurance, which is like $1,200 a year and more. Having some funds in Section 1 of this bill that would help us, because they want us to report budgetary questions, contribution information, community-based agreements from the developers with expertises that we just don't have. And if we cannot do this and the RCO cannot function, thus cutting out the voice of the community. Some neighborhoods can afford it, we cannot. And in Section 2 of this bill, it clearly states that the city does not assume any responsibility for any liabilities that are brought against the RCOs. So I'm asking you today to take consideration to have this bill for us, 220417, so that we do at least have a hand in the situations that are coming up, that are presented to us, that we voluntarily ask churches and community organizations to open up, to hear the community. Please do not cut off the voice of the disabled, the elderly, low income. Give us a voice and let's discuss the guidelines for this bill. But I disagree with the developer, Jim Moransky, that thinks we want to be in court and taking time and funds at hearings when it's our funds, our work that's being spent. Thank you for hearing me today, and I thank you for those that have presented this bill and those who have listened and those who will benefit from giving us a hand up in the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the next witness to testify?
Tiffany Green.
Good morning. Good morning, Council. I don't need to repeat because a lot of my colleagues already have stated. I just want to say that I think that the bill 417, I want to comment on two bills. 220, 417. it's really about compliance. A lot of developers, we found, want to skip steps and not really follow compliance. And I think it makes it more of a level playing field, knowing that there is an option in case they're non-compliant or they're not cooperating with the community. I think it also would make the developers come to the table and be more willing to work things out with the community members if they know that we have these options, not to necessarily be abused in any way. But the thing is, it's about also making sure that there's a respect between developer and community, and letting them know, like my colleague said, that there is another tool in the box in case that is not the case. I think that this is long overdue. It should have been part of the new zoning code back in 2012. If you were going to come and give bonuses to developers, then you should have been providing the community with the same type of ammunition. So I think that this is long overdue. And I'm going to keep it short. And I want to talk about Bill 220-414. I think trees are a good thing, but excessive trees can be a problem. And so I just want to talk about, because everybody said how good trees are, but there are a lot of issues that we've found and I've gotten from some residents over my years of doing zoning. And one is that the trees go up high, they block the residents' view from upstairs. They're not at night, they're not able to look down to see who's walking around, or if there's an issue, you can't see people walking or lurking around. Also, it blocks the street light at night. It makes the area more darker at times. And so it's a public safety issue. It collects a lot of pollution deposits, in the area, which needs to be looked at, as well as a lot of insects that wind up coming into people's houses and that type of thing. I'm saying that there needs to be a community process. I don't hear an RCO process as part of this bill. It needs to be, as far as large projects, we need to have a say for how many trees are going to be a part of a project, and we need to have, and each block by block should be notified, because you don't want to have excessive trees. Also, it leads to blocking sunlight, and it brings about more shade on people's houses, which leads to higher utility, electric bill or gas bill. So I just want to sum that up real quick, because I think that there are a lot of other things that go along with trees, and I think the community should have a say on the amount of trees that come on one block, and how they're situated and where they're situated. So please just keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
Will the clerk please call the next witness to testify?
John Scott.
Mr. Scott is not connected.
Tina Marie. Yes, Mr. Chair. Tina Marie Russell.
Good afternoon. Did you call me?
Yes. How you doing, Ms. Tina Marie Russell?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. First, I'd like to thank everyone for providing this platform for us to have a voice. It's very important that we do so. We live in a day, Philadelphia, as everyone knows, is being totally assaulted by the amount of density coming into the city. No studies are being taken on the effects of this high density apartments that is coming into the city. And part of that study that needs to be done, which is what you're doing today, was the effects on RCOs. We are being commissioned by the city, and as such, we should have some of the protections that we put into the city regarding our tax dollars. As an RCO, we're volunteers. We should not have to pay for insurance. Our tax dollars should go for that. We should not have to worry about having an attorney. Our tax dollars should go for that, because we're protecting and we're doing the work that belongs to the city. We're not doing anything as an individual. It's not private. This is all about protecting our community and our neighborhoods. The amount of density that's coming, as I stated, is higher, but also it's more. It has more value to it now. So we're not talking about 2 apartments or 3 apartments. We're talking about people building 1,600 apartments in the building, or 800 or 700, even 300 apartments. As a coordinator, I have about 4 variance changes right now that's going to put about 800 new apartments into 3 blocks. So it's something that these people are equipped with money. We're not equipped with money. We don't have any ammunition. We have one piece of ammunition that is ours as people, as citizens. That's called hardship. The developer has to show hardship. They're not showing the hardship, but we are being slammed with all kind of hardship, insurance issues, and everything is costing us money. Now you're saying we have to have an attorney. Well, where is that coming from? And I think it should come from our tax dollars, because if we're paying if we're giving them a 10-year tax abatement out of our tax dollars, increasing our tax dollars, then yes, we need not to have to worry about protecting the citizens who have been here, putting their tax dollars in for generations. So I think that we have to find a way to level this playing field. We're up against, I go to the ZBA hearings and I'm up against attorneys. I'm not an attorney. I'm a citizen. And I shouldn't have to put on the hat of an attorney just so that I can try to defend the community against the density that's coming into their community. But this is something, again, we pay our tax dollars for, and our tax dollars should be here for us to utilize without us having to dig into our pockets with volunteers we don't have to actually represent the city, the people in the city that the city is ordaining us to do. We get permission from the city, so therefore the city should represent us financially as well. I believe that hit the points I wanted to hit. We put in hundreds and hundreds of hours, and we've put our own private money, and it's time that stops. It's time the city takes on this responsibility and protects the RCOs the same way the RCOs are protecting the citizens of the city. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else here whose name has not been called that would like to testify on any of the bills we have discussed today?
Mr. Chair, I believe we have one more witness, Adrian Fernandez.
Ms. Fernandez, state your name for the record and please begin your testimony.
Hello, this is Adrian Fernandez of Swampoodle Neighborhood Parcels Association, RCO. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
You can go ahead
and I want to comment on. Okay. I want to comment on 220417. And I agree with the comments that support the tree planting, the additional tree planting. And I just want to add that when it comes to trees on private residences, especially in areas where the houses are very close together, we're having a problem with trees being too large between the space of backyards and the fire lane alley. So I would like to see the lists that have been developed by Philadelphia Horticultural Society, and I also believe by the Parks Commission. I would like to see those lists be required to be used first, because those trees have been researched and vetted to fit well in the urban built environment. And that's my major comment for 220414, I believe, 220414. For 220417, I support Curtis Jones' bill to provide funding for legal defense for RCOs, for registered community organizations. There's multiple problems that, on top of RCO's requirement to comply with the zoning code and any associated laws, for public hearings to make sure, public meetings to be sure that the public has proper input and informed input. We get legal complications because of non-compliance, and one of the larger abusers are certain RCOs. They will not follow the rules, and this is many times sanctioned by certain council offices, district council offices, and it's a revolving idiocy. They feel as though they can be ignorant of the law, therefore they can keep breaking the law. And when planning is contacted, when the director of planning and development is contacted, Ann Federline, we're not getting resolution. Sometimes these RCOs are leaving one RCO and starting another, continuing to be registered, even though they are breaking material key laws that are linked to the honest and fair public meeting, and also the recording, the proper and truthful recording of that meeting or meeting summary forms that are turned in by affected RCOs, whether they're coordinating a meeting or not. All RCOs are equal, and this disparity of treatment is causing confusion to neighbors and also causing ZBA hearings, the information that has to go to ZBA, to not be correct, and that affects the outcome of the ZBA hearing. As far as developers, developers receive funding from private sources, banks, or other owners, but they also receive funding from the government in ways of abatements or other credits that do go onto their income statement and balance sheets and that benefit their organization. So they are already receiving funding from multiple sources, whereas RCOs are getting funding usually not from the community because it's a burden to the community, regardless of the income, because the community, certain members spend time coming to these meetings, researching, providing their expertise, and then to further provide funding to RCOs, minimum funding, it's a burden. So I know Swampville RCO does not ask members and neighbors for funding. So when there's a legal appeal required, we have to eat that ourselves. We need legal defense funding for RCOs. We need RCOs to follow the rules. They are registered. If they're not registered, we need these legal funds to also take them out of the process of manipulating and sabotaging public meetings for the benefit of developers. Please vote this bill out of committee, and I hope it's passed at City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here whose name has not been called that would like to testify on any of the bills that we have discussed today? Hearing none, this concludes the hearing, and we will now go into a public meeting.
We are sorry, but the meeting has ended.
Mr. Chair, I think there's a Marlene that had her hand up. I don't know if she testified.
Yeah, I can't see it. Marlene, are you there?
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact. I testified earlier as Ridge Park Civic Association president and RCO representative. I just wanted to point one thing out, and that is we had a very unpleasant experience about a year ago where we decided that a zoning matter just wasn't significant enough to warrant hiring an attorney to represent us at the ZBA hearing. And what happened was that we were repeatedly muted. So we would start a comment and we were repeatedly muted, which would not have happened if a lawyer representing us had been present. And the response that we got from the ZBA was, well, everybody else does it, so why shouldn't she? And they gave her a variance so that she could park on her sidewalk. And so now we are in the position of having to appeal that decision because it's ridiculous. And so it's just further evidence that if you don't have legal representation as the RCO, the ZBA doesn't pay you a whole lot of heed. So that's my last comment, and thank you for listening. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome, Marlene. Is there anyone else whose name has not been called that would like to testify on the bills being discussed today? Are any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Hearing none, I want to thank all the panel and witnesses for their participation today. We value your input. I now invite all panel and witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will now pause the proceedings briefly as multiple participants leave the hearing. This concludes the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bills before this committee today. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that they are present when their names are called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak.
Vice Chair Mark Squilla.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, colleagues present.
Councilmember David O. Councilmember Cindy Bass. Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I am present.
Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez.
I am present.
Councilmember Curtis Jones. Councilmember Brian O'Neill.
Present.
Mr. Chair, a quorum is present.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. The chair recognizes Councilor Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 220445.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to Bill number 220445. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to Bill number 220445 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 220445 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I can't hear your aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilor Mark Squilla for a motion on Bill number 220445 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Bill number 220445 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended. I submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 220445 as amended be reported from this committee with the favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilor Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 220446.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to Bill number 220446. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to Bill number 220446 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 220446 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. An amendment to Bill number 220446 has been approved. I just want to say, if everybody is on the call or in attendance, I just want to signify for the record that everyone has to say aye loud and clear, just to make sure that the bill is passing out appropriately. The chair recognizes Councilor Mark Squilla for a motion on Bill number 220446 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Bill number 220446 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended. I submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 220446 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilor Mark Squilla for a motion on Bill number 200118.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Bill number 200118 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended. I submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 200118 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carried. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220456.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220456 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220456 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220458.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220458 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion that has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220458 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220323.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220323 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220323 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Council Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220357.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to the bill number 220357. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 220357 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 220357 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 220357 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220357 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220357 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that the dedicated and loyal Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220357 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220007.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 220007. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 220007 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 220007 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220007 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220007 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220007 as amended be reported from this committee with the favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220450.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220450 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill to the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilman Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220450 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220451.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 220451. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 220451 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilman Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220451 as amended be reported from this committee with the favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220452.
Mr. Chair, I think we need the motion as amended. I think we did the amendment and 220451 as amended.
As amended. Okay, let me go back. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220451 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thanks, Mark, for being my swingman. We straight now? All right. Thank you.
You're good.
The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220452.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 220452 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220452 be reported from this committee with the favorable recommendation. Further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220363.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220363 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220363 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220414.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 220414. A copy of that amendment is circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 220414 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 220414 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. An amendment to bill number 220414 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220414 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220414 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended and submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Captain Gilmore Richardson seconded the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220414 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220358.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 220358. A copy of that amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 220358 be approved.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Captain Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 220358 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the bill number 220358 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220358 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to admit the first reading of this bill at the next council session.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilman Captain Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220358 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on bill number 220417.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 220417 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as submit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilwoman Kathleen Gilmore Richardson seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220417 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. I want to say that bills number 220338 and bill number 220449 is being held at the request of the sponsor, and would like for the record to officially reflect that those two bills are being held. And those two bills are 220338 and 220449. Both are being held at the request of the bill sponsors. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your schedule and being here on this rules hearing. And I want to also give a special shout out to Councilman Mark Squilla, who's the vice chair, for holding it down and being my swingman and chairing this committee, as I had to go to a rebuild ribbon cutting ceremony in the district. And I also want to acknowledge Councilman Kathleen Gilmore Richardson, as well as Councilman Curtis Jones and Councilman Squilla for their bills, which advocates on behalf of the community as it relates to development in our city of Philadelphia. Thank you very much, everyone. I guess I'll see everyone in about another half an hour or hour for the committee on the whole. Thank you.
All right. Take care, you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely. Thank you.